name is Katie Oberly, but my maiden name is Sebastian. That might be familiar to you. I'm Betsy's daughter, which is, yes, an association that I'm very proud of. And it was very sweet that I got to just have a full circle moment this morning and come back. And Jill and I have been talking, as well as Catherine and I, about the series. And so thank you, awesome. So I'm going to be sharing some thoughts with you today on an aspect of Power of Now. So I don't know what authority I have to do that, but I'll share a little bit of context about kind of my path. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I feel like I've always been a spiritual seeker. I grew up at Covenant, but in high school I went to First Community Church and did the Camp Akita thing, and just really over the course of time shifted from maybe associating myself with Christianity more to secular humanism, Unitarian Universalism. I joined a Unitarian Universalist congregation, the one in Clintonville, First UU. But I don't know that there is a box necessarily that I connect with, although over time too, I've realized that more and more my sense of, I think, the psychology of well-being really has aligned, in what I've learned professionally, has aligned with the Dharma, Buddhist teaching. Again, not necessarily in a religious Buddhist way, but really just the literal teachings of the Buddha. And so there'll be a little of that integration today, and hopefully that will be a perspective that you can appreciate and also maybe have some conversation about if we have a little time at the end. I would love that. So, should I grab the door?
Okay.
Oh, okay, thanks. So I picked the chapter that I felt just the most resonant with, which was chapter 9. Beyond happiness and unhappiness, there is peace. And so then my title is Enjoy. So I think that these two are connected, so we're gonna just kind of riff on that today a little bit. For me, Toll's concept of finding peace beyond happiness and unhappiness is the practical application of shifting from an external to an internal locus of control. If you've ever heard that term, locus of control, right? So Toll teaches that the ego-driven mind, which is identified with possessions, status, mental concepts, this operates from an external locus of control, and Catherine touched on this too. The ego's desire to control external circumstances to achieve happiness is the very source of suffering. I wanted to focus on this chapter in particular because throughout my life, I've struggled with my mood being tied to external conditions.
Could you talk a little slower?
Sure. My mood has, no, that's great. Thank you. My mood has been tied to external conditions a lot. Meaning, when it's a morning like this morning, I feel happy. It's easier to get up. When it's a cold, gray, wintry Columbus morning, I'm like, ugh, I don't know that this is gonna be such a great day. That's an external locus of control. I have, in recent years, been really interested in how I can cultivate an inner sense of steadiness that is not dependent on conditions. So no matter what I wake up to, externally, or even internally, can I have an internal sense, even deeper inside, of inner steadiness that can radiate out? And you're probably on this path too, and that's why you're here in this series. So I wanted to start, I don't believe this is in his book, but it really made me think of this story that I've heard in many Dharma teachings. It's the story of the Chinese farmer. You can close your eyes if you want. It's a little morning story time. Once upon a time, there was a Chinese farmer whose horse ran away. That evening, all of his neighbors came around to commiserate. they said, "We are so sorry to hear that your horse has run away. This is most unfortunate." And the farmer said, "Maybe." The next day, the horse came back, bringing 7 wild horses with it. And in the evening, everybody came back and said, "Oh, isn't that lucky? What a great turn of events. You now have 8 horses. This is wonderful." And the farmer said, "Maybe." The following day, his son tried to break one of the horses. Not literally, right? I mean, that's horse jargon for like training it. And while riding it, he was thrown and actually broke his leg. Then the neighbors said, "Oh dear, that's too bad." And the farmer responded, "Maybe." The next day, the conscription officers came around to conscript people in the army, and they rejected the son because he had a broken leg. Again, all the neighbors came around and said, "Isn't that great? He'll be safe now." And again, the farmer said, "Maybe." The whole process of nature is integrated in this immense complexity. It's really impossible to tell in any given moment if anything is really truly bad or good, because we don't know the consequences. We aren't able to zoom out into the future and predict. Alan Watts tells the story. So I really, really like that, because oftentimes my mood does this, right? Like a roller coaster, I'm going up, I'm going high, and oh my gosh, I can see everything, it's beautiful, and oh no, like here I go. And then just my happiness can go up and down and up and down. And happiness, Toll says, depends on conditions being perceived as positive. Inner peace does not. Things and conditions can give you pleasure, but they can't give you joy or peace. So there's nothing wrong with pleasure. You can still appreciate pleasant things and conditions, but Toll says to seek something through them that they cannot give, an identity, a sense of permanency and fulfillment, that's a recipe for frustration and suffering. So in other words, it's all right to enjoy pleasant things, to want to have, a cashmere sweater that feels good on your skin, and to want to go on a tropical vacation and sit in the sun and drink a pina colada and all the things that are like the worldly desires. But when we start clinging to them, or even feeling like our worth or our sense of self is defined by them, like I am a person who, derives my sense of self from what I have, where I go, who I associate with. It's those narratives that we construct about our sense of self, that's really where the ego is lurking. And that's really when suffering is happening, even though it feels good in the moment. Things and conditions are impermanent. And this is really one of the core central teachings of the Buddha, is impermanence. And that once we understand this, we will suffer less. Toll says, impermanence is a characteristic of every condition, every situation you will ever encounter in your life. It will change, disappear, or no longer satisfy you. Which is good news for the crappy stuff, because that will change, but it can be really hard when it's the good stuff that we don't want to change. We don't want to have change. He says impermanence is actually also central to Jesus's teaching. In the Bible, when Jesus says, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust consume, and where thieves break in and steal." Toll goes on to say, to offer no resistance to life is to be in a state of grace, ease, and lightness. This state is then no longer dependent upon things being a certain way, good or bad. So in Buddhism, the Buddha talks about clinging on one side and aversion on the other side. And he talked then about the middle way, right? Which is acceptance that everything changes, and so I'm going to suffer less when I don't cling and I don't resist things that happen, when there is acceptance. These are long quotes, but hopefully they're helpful quotes. If anyone would like a copy of my PowerPoint after, I can send you a shareable link. I'd be happy to do that. I have cards, so you can just email me or call me and I'll send it to you, no problem. Or I can send it to Joel and he can send it out. Relinquishment of resistance, right? So like unresisting, surrender, in other words, is the end of the mind as your master. The imposter pretending to be you, the false god, in other words, the ego. All judgment and negativity dissolve when we surrender, when we relinquish resistance to what is. The realm of being, with capital B, which has been obscured by the mind, then opens up. Suddenly, a great stillness arises within you. And within that peace, there is great joy. And within that joy, there is love. And at the innermost core, there is the sacred. I like to think of it as this wellspring that's sort of like always running way down here under the surface of everything inside ourselves. And stuff gets toppled on top of it. Life and our egos and how we respond to everything and react to everything and cling and resist. And once we're able to see clearly about the nature of impermanence, all of that starts dissolving away, and we have a clear view all the way down into that wellspring within us, which for some people feels like God within us or our soul. You know, so it can be called different things. Some people just call it being, joy of being. True peace, Toll says, arises from presence, the timeless awareness under all experiences. So being can also be synonymous with the term presence. Sometimes all of these semantics get confusing. So when that happens, or if that happens, I think kind of just zooming out and looking at the bigger picture of these concepts is helpful. But sometimes words really matter. So if presence resonates for you, like for me it does because I'm a mindfulness coach and facilitator and teacher, like presence is like, yeah, I get that, like mindful presence. But if others resonate with that term being, or that term existence, or soul, awakening, enlightenment, things like that. Christ consciousness. Toll calls this the joy of being, the quiet aliveness that's always available when we step out of mental time in the past and the future and rest in the now. The power of now, right? See, it's all coming full circle. So we're just going to take 2 minutes to sort of like experiment and see if we can touch into that for just a couple moments. So feel free to close your eyes if you'd like, or just sort of soften your gaze and maybe rest it just a little bit slightly downwards in front of you, so you're not like focused in on any specific thing, focal point, but just sort of like a softened gaze or closing the eyes. This is helpful anyway, because we just are arriving in the moment. And on a busy morning, on a Sunday morning, when we've maybe been, part of ourselves have wanted to sleep in, and the other part's like, no, we gotta get up, and we're rushing around, we made it here. We made it here. Now we've arrived. Let's just be here. Allow ourselves to just take a slow, easy breath in, gentle breath out, and notice what's here without trying to change anything. Notice the sensations in the body. Warmth, coolness, the sensation of the air touching the body, tingling pressure, noticing sounds, the rising and falling of your breath, the electrical hum in the background. Observing your thoughts and your feelings, sort of like you are the sky observing the clouds, moving across our sky of awareness, allowing thoughts, emotions, and moods to drift in and out of this awareness. And instead of judging them, just silently saying, this is a thought, that's a feeling, passing through. And see if you can sense into the stillness underneath all of this, beyond the shifting thoughts and sensations. See if you can sense the quiet space that's simply aware of it all. You don't have to create this peace, this stillness. It's already there. See if you can rest in that presence. For a few breaths, just allow yourself to rest in that spacious awareness, noticing the gentle aliveness that remains, whether the moment feels pleasant or not. Noticing the gentle aliveness beneath and beyond it all. Take one more breath in and out. And open your eyes when you're ready. It's all right if in those few moments you took a nice little nap or you thought about grocery shopping. It's okay. Mindfulness is a process and a practice, what I call it, right? Just the returning to that stillness, that being, that inner peace and inner presence. If we had longer, there would be more time to keep returning to. But I've done some, not a lot, but some longer meditations where I was like gone most of the whole time. Lost in thought, in a storyland somewhere, in the imaginings of my ego. And over time, at least, I feel like I've gotten better at not shaming myself for that, but just with compassion, allowing myself to return to the present. So, if you got there, did you notice anything? And what did you notice when you stopped grasping for like a good feeling? Like, oh, okay, now we're gonna meditate. This is probably what this is meditation, so I need to relax and feel good. Like what happened when you actually maybe went beyond that agenda and just let the moment be? Did you have a sense? Can anyone share if there was sort of like a felt sense of what that was, how you describe that? Yeah.
Kind of restful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
From what you said, I was thinking about when I've been in a plane and they take you up so high that you're looking down on the clouds and that's all you see.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
That's more comfortable than when they take you in the clouds and you see nothing.
Yeah, that's
It's
exactly
kind of a
right.
similar deal, but yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I love sometimes in presentations, I use the imagery of like like a kid's glitter jar or like snow globe, right? And when it's shaken up, like you can't see through it, right? It's like being lost in the clouds of going through them, right? But when there's stillness, and then everything settles to the bottom, right? And then we have clarity, clear seeing.
I found that kind of calming,
Yeah,
especially without the ear pressure.
yeah, exactly. Good, restful, calming. Anybody else have a felt sense?
When I first started trying to do these things, it helped me a lot to find my heartbeat. And with practice, it got to a point where I don't have to touch anything. I could just be still and find it. And so then when I can do that, then I feel as if, I don't know, Catherine, can people really do this? I feel as if I can feel like my heartbeat in different parts of my body.
I was just going to say, sometimes you might hear yoga teachers say, breathe into your toes. And
Yeah,
some people are like, what are you talking about?
I've heard the breathing. I don't feel the breathing, but I feel my heart.
Yes, right.
Which I guess is, like carrying oxygen, which is sort of the point
That's
of
right.
breathing.
It's all connected.
But anyway, when I feel my heartbeat going through me, I've been having a lot of anxiety. I'm sure a lot of you have a lot of things going on that cause you anxiety. I do too. It reminds me, I'm alive. I'm okay. Everything's working the way it's supposed to work.
That's right.
And that brings me peace.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm still here.
That's
I'm doing
right.
this.
And it's not like a happy feeling necessarily, right? Because it isn't always externally condition-wise very happy out there.
Yeah, it's reassuring, I think, is what it is to me
Because
right
it's
now.
findable, right? It's findable. I can return to it. It's always there. So there is a sense of maybe restfulness, peacefulness, contentment. Anybody else? Yeah. Nick. Or you guys fight it out. It doesn't matter.
Breath makes a big difference to me. If I'm, just as we did, if I'm maybe closing my eyes, although I do this when I'm driving, so I'm not always closing my eyes. I don't close my eyes. But, and this is kind of from yoga practice, it does, I notice that I just connect with myself, and I'm kind of intentional about keeping it even, drawing in and drawing out at the same pace. And honestly, I feel like, well, there's the white coat syndrome when you go see your doctor, and sometimes your blood pressure is higher than, and they go, oh, but I have found that I can almost, while I'm driving to an appointment, when I'm sitting there, if I can just focus and slow down, I think it causes me to slow down, that often it's normal, it's not higher because of the anticipation or
That's right. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I feel like more of an absence of feelings. I don't know, like almost there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Which is fine, because what was there was stress, and
Right.
it's a better place.
Yeah.
But yeah, like to what you're saying, Jeannie, I know there's like gurus out there who can just like drop their
Drop
heart
in.
rate
Yeah. Yeah.
command, like 30 beats per minute.
Exactly.
Like stop
Right.
it or something.
Right.
It's just, I think it does do that. I'm trying to
Or it's this. Yeah, I heard one. I think it was I forget his name right now, but in any case, he talked about one of his teachers saying, like, I'll use my name for it, like, Katie's here and Katie's gone. And Katie's here and Katie's gone. Right? The sense of like the ego, like who I am, Katie Overly. And then it's like the dropping away of that, which actually for some people can feel real scary. Very upending. Because we're starting to see the nature of reality, impermanence, the ego. There's nothing wrong with having a self. We have to walk through, we have to have a social security number and, a driver's license and go and like do all the things in our normal life. But like, if we can have just the awareness of that there is something beyond that form of self, then there can be a growth of wisdom, which then can lead us to this sort of inner contentment or well-being in the face of things changing. Does anyone have another thought? Okay. Did I have another question? Yeah, so just maybe something to chew on. How might this sense of peace help you meet both happiness and unhappiness with more steadiness? Considering that. So to review, Toll says the joy of being is not dependent on circumstances. So it's not caused by events, achievements, or possessions. It arises from simply being aware of your own existence in the now. The joy of being is a felt sense of presence, noticing this inner stillness. So when we notice the inner stillness, we notice life itself, consciousness, presence. And the recognition of this can be joyful because nothing has happened externally to lead us to be happy, but we've found it, this joy that is deeper and more far-reaching, I argue. And so finally, the joy of being is freedom from the ego's grip. Because the ego thrives on past and future, on stories, or lack of achievement, or when we drop into the present, the ego's grip loosens, and that's what can feel peaceful. So when we become present, we can choose to engage in behaviors aligned with this joy of being. Let me say that again. When we become present, and I would argue only when we become present, do we really have choice? And then because we have choice, clarity to make a choice, we can choose to engage in behaviors aligned with this joy of being. Ones that promote well-being in ourselves and others, because Toll says choice begins the moment you disidentify with the mind and its conditioned patterns, the moment you become present. I don't have a choice when I'm reactive, when I'm mindless, when I'm just, or when I'm dissociative, when I'm sort of like not here fully, right? I don't have a choice, a conscious choice. But there's such power, again, title, there's such power in having a choice because there's so much that we can't control in life, but we can control how we respond to life when we first access presence. That's the pause, that's the stillness, that's the zooming up at the 35,000 foot view. And then once we see, oh, I see, if I make that reactive choice, it's gonna lead to suffering. Oh, I see, if I make a choice that's a choice aligned with clinging, I'm ultimately gonna suffer. I can see how that's gonna end. If I make a choice that's aligned with aversion or resistance, that's ultimately also gonna lead to suffering. How do I make a choice that's responsive, responsible, able to have a response, not a reaction? And the people in your life will thank you, right? And there's a saying, nobody likes it when you're a Buddhist, but everybody likes it when you're a Buddha, right? When you just move through the world, responding, not reacting, you don't have to say, well, that's because I'm a Buddhist and may you go in peace, right? You don't need to say that. That's another narrative. It's just about how you move through the world. Even when we're caught up in the challenges of life, we know we can choose to be kind or act with compassion. This in itself opens us up to well-being and contentment. So I'm bringing in here another book that maybe you want to read as a companion to Power of Now or at some point. But James Barras is trained in the Dharma teaching. He's a meditation teacher out at Spirit Rock. There's sort of insight meditation center on the East Coast and Spirit Rock on the West Coast. They're these Dharma teaching centers. And he really focuses on the heartfulness qualities of the Dharma, the path, qualities that are all about love and wholesome states. Another meditation teacher said, love doesn't have to be dependent on ideal circumstances. Rather, we can learn to recognize, awaken, and develop it so it becomes the natural dwelling place of the heart. James Ferraz likes to use the term, we can incline our mind to joy, to love. We can sort of like tune the frequency. And he says, in Buddhist practice, the actions and attitudes associated with well-being are called wholesome because they help us feel healthy and whole. And they contribute to the well-being of everything and everyone around us. So, in Buddhism, there are these things called the Brahma Viharas. That's I believe a Pali term, either Pali or Sanskrit. But this means wholesome states, or the divine abodes, or the sublime attitudes, the four immeasurables. These are all terminology for these states, okay? And really consciousness, presence, the now, is at the center of all of that. And the four states are loving kindness, which is called metta, M-E-T-T-A, not like metta, like meta-awareness, M-E-T-A, but M-E-T-T-A. Karuna, which is compassion. Mudita, which is sympathetic joy, which means delighting in the joy of others. Like when you watch someone open a present that like you got for them, and you're so excited, and you're like, oh, they're gonna like it, and they like it, and you're like, yes. Or just like someone that you really think deserves a promotion gets a promotion, and you're happy for them. Or, you know, you watch your child just like, you know, like spell a word correctly in a spelling bee, and they're so excited, or whatever it is, right? But you're happy that they're happy. But it's almost like this deeper joy that arises because of their happiness. Their happiness may come and go, but there's just this joy that arises, which is really the opposite of jealousy. And, you know, kind of just like, oh, she got that, and I wanted that, and all of that. And that just feels different internally in your body, right? You can kind of just tell, have a felt sense that it just feels kind of toxic to sit in jealousy for a long time, to sit in resentment for a long time. But these wholesome states feel somatically in our bodies really different.
I think it's contrasted also with judgment, jealousy for sure. But I can see the jealousy, but I can also see in me my unwillingness to join someone's sympathetic joy through my judgment of,
oh, I love that.
You are being superficial, you're missing the deeper suffering of life, and so like I'm not going to join you there because I can see that you're a surface level person.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it's almost like condescending judgment,
Yes,
kind of
yes.
like, yeah, like, oh, like, okay. Right,
Look
exactly.
at you enjoying life.
That's right. That's right. Yep. That is really, really a great nuance. Thank you. The final one is upekkha, or it's pronounced upekkha, equanimity, which is sort of an inner steadiness. Again, kind of the joy that arises from this almost like eye of the hurricane feeling of like no matter praise and blame, you know, disrepute and fame, loss and gain, the worldly winds, as Buddhism calls them, no matter what, this equanimity, this joy is like settled and stands in the middle of all of that. So these are all attitudes and actions that we can cultivate. And Toll doesn't focus as much on like the cultivation part of it. I don't necessarily think he really talks about like the dropping into presence and that sort of like from there, all this can happen. But I think actually when we're cultivating these, which I'll talk about ways to do that in a minute, we're getting to presence. Like it drops us into presence anyway.
Katie?
Yeah.
On that slide, it so reminds me of the universality of these ideas because I can think of St. Paul's gifts of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, faithfulness, goodness, self-control. You can tuck every one of those
Absolutely.
under those.
Yes, what Catherine was saying before, like that says there's been only one teaching, one practice, one spiritual practice, right? It really it's uniting, right? All of these wholesome states and in different religious contemplative traditions. Yeah, exactly. So why do these matter? What's the real world application? So when the Brahma Viharas become strong, they enable us to keep love at the forefront in all of our social encounters with anyone we meet, no matter how challenging. With loving kindness, metta, we learn how to maintain a healthy goodwill for those that are hostile. Really, truly wishing them well. That is a tough one. Yeah. I don't nail any of these on a daily basis for sure. But at least I know that, like, that's where I want to be. That's great. To have balanced compassion for those encountering tragic suffering. The balanced compassion. So that we're not experiencing compassion fatigue, or really what's more like empathy fatigue, that we're again able to kind of like have a view of like, okay, if this is their suffering, I'm actually not, it's not going to be beneficial if I internalize all their suffering to the point that I'm like incapacitated, which the 24-hour news cycle can really do to us. But can we have a balanced compassion so that we can almost like say, okay, what can I control in my sphere of the world, and how do I want to move forward in compassion in a balanced way so that I'm not sucked dry, but that I'm not numbed out, right? So that I'm not just giving and giving and giving and then pouring from an empty cup, but that I'm also not turning away from suffering because I can't handle it. To experience a stress-free joy when celebrating others, right? So that we just don't we leave the judgment out of it. We leave the jealousy out of it. And we just are like, oh, yay, I'm happy you're happy, yay. I love that. And that our culture is also not great at that. Aggressive capitalism, right? It's like dog eat dog, and there's only one winner ever, and the other people are losers, and all the rhetoric that goes along with that. And to feel an equanimous, I can never say that word, it always sounds like equestrian to me. Equanimous love for those we cannot help, right? So just knowing that we are united, we are connected in this web of life, and I have my path, and you have your path. And I have to believe that me making ripples in my sphere of influence will ultimately benefit your path. But I also need to have a realistic sense of I might not be able to make your path different, lessen your suffering directly. But when I move through the world, characterized by behaviors and attitudes aligned with wholesome states, that's the ripple, then I have no idea how far that goes. And if everybody does that, we're set, we're good. Literally the solution, right? We all have the potential to abide in loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. When we know how to do this, these capacities become an inner wealth, more valuable than outer riches. To tap into this wealth, Buddhism teaches practices for developing each of the 4 Brahma Viharas. Some practitioners focus on metta, the one that's hardest, according to my mother, which I would agree with. Because when a heart is filled with boundless goodwill, with metta, other attitudes naturally arise in response to circumstances. So, if we have a strong sense of metta, of loving kindness, wishing others well, then when we encounter suffering, our goodwill naturally becomes compassion. Karuna. When we encounter happiness, our goodwill naturally becomes mudita, sympathetic joy. When we're practicing metta and we're faced with a challenging situation, this foundation of metta allows for a steady, even mind. Upekkha, equanimity. So this person is named Jennifer Berezin. She is a singer-songwriter and a Dharma teacher, and I had the pleasure of going on retreat with her and another Dharma teacher, Erin Treat, at Vallecitas Mountain Retreat Center near Taos, New Mexico, almost a month ago. And she teaches through song and chant a lot. And she put these 4 Brahmaviharas into a chant song. It's really, really beautiful and lovely. And it's just a way to, chanting and like chanting in community can be a way to just allow those wholesome states to kind of work their way into our spirit in a deeper way. You know that, right? That's why we sing in services, because it just like lands in our spirit in this like tender, intuitive way that sometimes even words alone can't do. So I'm gonna pop out of this presentation real quick. And again, this chanting doesn't mean that you're a Buddhist, okay? Again, don't be Buddhist anyway, be a Buddha. But this is just, all she's saying are the Pali words that we just learned, the Brahmaviharas. She's going to say, metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha. Let's say that together. Metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha. So metta is loving kindness, karuna is compassion, mudita is sympathetic joy, and upekkha is equanimity. So she'll tell you a little bit about that, and then we'll sing along with her, and I brought my guitar, so I'll strum along too.
The Buddhist teacher Ayya Khema says, really worth having. And they're translated as loving kindness, compassion, joy, or joy in other people's joy, sympathetic joy, and upekkha, which is peace of mind or equanimity. I think about the qualities of my life, the moments of my life that feel the most worth having. They tend to have aspects of these things in them. Compassion, loving kindness, just feeling of kind of wanting others, or wanting the world to be well, and wanting myself to be well, and compassion, responding with care, and joy, of course. We all want joy. Not just the fleeting kinds of momentary things, right? Just kind of turn us on for a moment and then we have to find another one. But that deep kind of just joy that is usually not so much connected to particular conditions. And then, of course, equanimity, peace of mind. So we're going to talk about, focus on compassion in a little bit, but let's do this chant that invokes these 4 immeasurables, because I'm hoping that, for me at least in the next 4 days, maybe I'll find my way into a little bit of each of these qualities of mind. And that maybe also our country may move as a collective into manifesting more of these qualities. So metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha. Metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha. Metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha.
Join in when you get it.
Metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha. Metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha. Metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha.
All right, just a couple more minutes for you. Thank you for your kind attention. Present. Full screen. Present. Thank you. So the Brahma Viharas can be nurtured in every day outside of formal meditation. So we don't have to do just the chanting, the formal meditation. It's really by noticing and staying present with moments of love and care. So when moments of love and care happen, again, it's the middle way between clinging to them. Oh, it's love and care, I don't want the love and care to go away. Just noticing and savoring, but knowing that they too will pass away. Just staying open and inclining our mind to create those moments and to notice those moments. And with regular practice, we can recall these qualities. That's where the practice of the chanting, the practice of like the reviewing these states, just knowing that they're there, reminding ourselves. It's the hardest part of mindfulness, is the reminding ourselves to do it, right? But so with practice, we can recall these qualities and let them guide our behavior. So again, this book, if you're interested in, these are some of the chapters in the book and the practices that James talks about. We don't have to wait till tomorrow for conditions to improve. When we are present, we can choose to live in alignment with wholesome states in this moment, right? So it's no day but today, it's a quote from Rent, but no moment but this moment, right? Living for today, yes, but living for this moment, living into this moment. And remember, we are not separate from this world, Toll says. So when the majority of humans become free from egoic delusion, the grip of the ego, the external locus of control, this interchange will reflect and ripple out and affect all of creation. This is a line from my song, Shine. When we are kind, we make the world shine. I don't have time to play it for you now, but you can listen to it. It's on Spotify or Apple Music or wherever you listen to it, my name and the word shine. It's all about the power of now and using now to incline our mind to loving kindness, compassion, joy. So I'd like to close with a metta meditation. This is sort of the classic phrasing of a metta meditation. And I also created a metta meditation song that I'm releasing on my EP, shameless plug, I didn't mean to sound like that, but it's coming out in November. So if you're interested in just a song in English that can remind you of these qualities, it will be called May You Be, and it'll be out November 7th. And I put a little flyer, I'm doing a concert at First Unitarian Universalist Church on November 8th, a Saturday, of that song and the 4 other new songs on there. There's a wonderful instrumentalist who's opening for me, so if you're inclined to that, you take a picture of that and save the date. But the phrases are, may I be safe, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I live with ease. So when we engage in loving kindness, we're wishing it not only for others, but for ourselves too. We include ourselves in the circle of compassion. If we don't do that, our compassion is incomplete. So may I be safe, be happy, be healthy, and live with ease. And then the loving kindness practice is to extend to a person who is easy to send loving kindness to, like a benefactor, like a pet, something like that, some being that we're like, oh yes, of course. That's no dissonance at all. So may this being, who's in our mind's eye now, be safe, be happy, be healthy, live with ease. And then we extend loving kindness to someone we're kind of feeling neutral about, right? Maybe an acquaintance, maybe someone here in this room who we don't know well, but it's pretty easy to send loving kindness to. So we send them those phrases again, may you be safe, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you live with ease. Then we ratchet up the difficulty, because then we think of a difficult person, someone who's really, it's hard to send loving kindness to. We're like, oh, but you're so obnoxious and angry and terrible. And we practice sending them loving kindness too. May you be safe, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you live with ease. And then finally, we extend that loving kindness to all beings. All sentient beings, all non-sentient beings, however far you want to go. May all beings be safe. May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings live with peace. Thank you so much for your kind attention.